You probably think you know the Titanic story. The iceberg, the lifeboats, the band playing as the ship went down. But here's what nobody tells you. 700 people boarded that ship in third class, and most of them thought they'd won the lottery. Here's what life was actually like for the poorest passengers on the most famous ship that ever sank. If you're listening to this late at night, maybe winding down after a long day, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Always curious who's out there listening to history at odd hours. Now, settle into your pillow. Pull your blanket up a little closer because we're about to go somewhere very different from where you are right now. We're going back to April 1912, and you're not going to be watching from the outside, you're going to live it. The tender boat rocks beneath your feet as you stare up at something impossible. You've seen big things before. You grew up in Cork, where the harbour brought all sorts of vessels. But this thing floating in Queenstown Harbour isn't a ship. It's a floating city. It's a cathedral, lying on its side. It's every building in your village stacked on top of each other and then doubled. The Titanic. Even the name sounds like something from mythology, like something that shouldn't exist in the real world, in your world, in the world of potato farms and leaky cottage roofs and your mother's rosary beads clicking in the evening prayers. But here it is, real as the salt spray hitting your face. Real as the £23 sewn into the lining of your coat, real as the inspection card in your pocket that says you're healthy enough, clean enough, acceptable enough to board this marvel and sail to America. Your name is Celian Brennan. You're 19 years old. You've never been more than 30 metres from the townland where you were born. And in about 15 minutes you're going to walk onto a ship that cost more to build than every farm in County Cork combined. The tender America carries about 120 of you, mostly Irish, mostly young, mostly terrified in that particular way where you can't stop grinning. Because if you stop grinning you might cry, and if you start crying you might never stop. Your cousin Padraig stands beside you, gripping the railing so hard his knuckles have gone white. He's 2 years older than you, supposedly the sensible one, the one who planned this whole journey. Right now, he looks like he might be sick over the side. Would you look at it? He breathes. You can't look anywhere else. The ship is painted black along the hull with a white superstructure rising above it like cliffs of dough made of steel and glass. 4 massive funnels pierce the sky, 3 of them venting steam in lazy white plumes. The 4th is just for show, you'll learn later. The designers thought it looked more impressive with 4. Everything about this ship is about looking impressive. That's what the White Star Line does. They don't compete on speed. Cunard has them beat there with the Mauretania and Lusitania. No, White Star competes on size and luxury. They want you to feel like you're staying in the finest hotel in the world while you cross the Atlantic. Even in third class. Especially in third class, actually. Because here's something they don't tell you in the history books. The money wasn't really in first class. Oh, those millionaires paid handsomely for their suites, but there weren't that many of them. The real profit came from the hundreds upon hundreds of immigrants packed into the lower decks. People like you, people paying £7 and a few shillings for passage to a new life. That's about $900 in today's money. Not nothing. Your family scraped for 2 years to put that together. Your sister Mary sent money from Boston, where she works as a domestic. Your mother sold a good cow. Your father took odd jobs in the cove loading cargo, the same cargo that's probably sitting in the hold of this very ship, Also, you could stand here on this tender boat, staring up at the largest moving object ever created by human hands, and feel simultaneously like the luckiest person alive and the smallest speck of nothing in the universe. The boarding process at Queenstown is chaos organised into lines. You'd already been through the first inspection that morning at the offices of James Scott and Company on the quay. A doctor had checked your scalp for lice, your eyes for trauma, and your skin for any sign of infectious disease. He'd asked you to cough, asked you to walk across the room, and asked if anyone in your family had consumption. All of this because America didn't want you if you were sick. The US immigration laws were clear. Bring disease across the Atlantic and you'd be turned away at Ellis Island, sent back on the next ship at the shipping company's expense, so Whittard did the filtering before you ever got on board. Better to reject you in Ireland than pay for your round trip. You're past, obviously. You're young and healthy and strong from years of farm work. The doctor barely glanced at you before stamping your papers and moving on. But now, as the tender pulls alongside the Titanic's massive black hull, there's another inspection. Ship's officers in crisp white uniforms stand at the gangway, checking tickets, checking inspection cards, and checking that the person boarding matches the person on the manifest. Your heart hammers against your ribs, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because this is it. This is the moment. Once you walk through that door, you're really doing this. You're really leaving. Ireland will become something behind you. Something you can only reach through letters and memories and the $42 it costs to cross back the other way. The line shuffles forward. Someone's playing music somewhere. And Julian Piper named Eugene Daly, you'll learn later, playing a nation once again as a farewell to the old country. The tune floats across the water, mixing with the crying of gulls and the chug of the tender's engine and the overwhelming mechanical thrum of the Titanic herself. Your turn comes. You hand over your ticket. The officer glances at it, glances at your inspection card, glances at you. Name: Cillian Brennan, sir. Destination: New York, then Boston. My sister's there. He nods, stamps something, hands your documents back, points to a doorway in the ship's side, 3rd class. Follow the corridor, take the stairs down, the steward will show you to your berth, and just like that you're walking into history. The gangway door is massive, built to be watertight. You notice the locking mechanisms as you pass through. Big metal dogs that would seal this entrance against the sea. Everything on this ship seems designed to keep the ocean out, to deny the fundamental reality that you're floating in water deep enough to swallow mountains. Inside, the corridor is narrow but clean, with white painted steel and the occasional timber partition. You're deep in the ship's belly here, down on a deck, and immediately you notice the thrumming. It's the engines. They're not running at full speed yet. The ship's still at anchor, but you can feel them in your bones. A constant vibration that says this thing is alive, that all those tons of steel have a heartbeat. A steward in White Star livery directs you toward the back of the ship. You learn forward is front, port is left, and starboard is right. You're picking up the vocabulary already, feeling it settle into your brain alongside the Gaelic and English that live there. Mind the potato room, the steward says as you pass a storage area. That's what they call it anyway, stores for your meal. That is, you barely register the words. You're too busy staring. The corridor is longer than any hallway you've ever seen. It runs the length of the ship or near enough. They call it Scotland Road, you'll discover. The crew's nickname for the main 3rd class corridor was borrowed from a famous street in Liverpool. It's wide enough for 2 people to pass comfortably, lined with doors on either side leading to cabins and storage rooms and service areas. And it's busy people everywhere speaking languages you recognise and languages you don't. Irish, English, Swedish, maybe something Slavic, or something that sounds like Italian. Families with children, young men like yourself, and women clutching bags and looking around with the same overwhelmed expression you can feel on your own face. This is what third class is. Not the unwashed masses from the propaganda posters, not the huddled refugees of political cartoons. Just people, ordinary people, some as poor as church mice. Yes, having sold everything they own to buy this ticket. But others are tradespeople, cobblers, carpenters, tailors, and people with skills and professions who simply can't find enough work in the old country. People like your father, who's a slater by trade, make roofs. Good at it too. But there are only so many roofs to be made in County Cork and too many men who can make them. He'd have come himself if he could have afforded it. Instead, he sent you and Patrick to scout the land to establish yourselves, to send back money, and maybe someday bring the whole family over. The steward leads you down a stairwell, then another. The ship is a maze. Decks upon decks, each one designated by a letter. You started on E, went down to F, and now you're heading toward the off section where families and single women are berthed. Wait, you're not a family. You're not a single woman. You're a young man. Why are they putting you back here? Cabins are full up forward, the steward explains when you ask. You and your cousin will be in with a family. The Brennan, it says here. He checks his manifest. Any relation? Not that I know of. You say Brennan's a common name. Could be coincidence. Well, you'll have the upper bunks. The family's got the lowers. 2 children, I think. Try not to step on anyone in the night. He stops at a door. Cabin E45 or something like that. The numbers blur together in your memory already. Here you are. Supper is at 5:30. Dine-in saloons on F deck. Forward. You'll hear the bugle, and then he's gone, off to settle the next batch of confused immigrants, and you're standing in the doorway of your home for the next 6 days. The cabin is small. That's the first thing you notice. It's maybe 10 feet long and 7 feet wide, with 2 sets of bunk beds built into the walls. A small wash basin sits in the corner, ceramic with a tank above it for water. Not running water, you realise. You'll have to refill that tank yourself if you want to wash. White painted pine panels line the walls. The floor is some kind of red linoleum, easy to clean. A single electric light hangs from the ceiling. You've used electric lights before a few times in bigger shops in Cork, but having one in your own room feels luxurious beyond measure. The family sharing your cabin is already there. A woman in her 30s, worn-looking but with kind eyes. 2 children, a boy of about 8 and a girl of maybe 5. The woman's husband is conspicuously absent. He's forward with the other men, she explains when she catches you looking. They don't let families stay together if there's not room enough. Something about the immigration laws. Have to keep the men separate in case any try to sneak through without inspection. Her name is Margaret. Margaret Brennan. No relation as far as you can determine. She's from Limerick, heading to meet her brother in Chicago. Her husband, Daniel, took a berth in the forward section with the single men, sharing a cabin with 5 strangers. It's only 6 days, she says, and you can tell she said it to herself many times. We'll see him at meals and on deck. It's just for sleeping. But there's something in her eyes, something that knows how strange this is, how unnatural to board a ship as a family and immediately be scattered to opposite ends. The children don't seem to mind. They're too busy being amazed by everything. The electric light, the porthole, the way the whole room vibrates gently with the engine's heartbeat. You throw your bag onto the upper bunk. It's not much of a bag. A change of clothes. Some food for the journey, though you've been told meals are included. A photograph of your family that your mother pressed into your hands at the last moment. A bottle of holy water that she made you promise to keep safe. Padre takes the other upper bunk. He's already pulling out his rosary, settling in for prayers. That's Patrick, always the devout one. You're supposed to be devout too. Of course, everyone is back home. But you've always been more interested in what's coming than what's already been said. What's coming is America. What's coming is New York Harbor and the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island. And then a train to Boston, where Mary will be waiting. What's coming is work. Hard work, probably. Maybe in construction or on the docks or wherever they'll have a young Irishman with strong arms and a willingness to do what needs doing. What's coming is a life. You lie back on your bunk and feel the ship move beneath you. It's subtle. The Titanic is so massive that the small harbour waves barely touch her. But there's gentle rocking, a rhythm, like being in a giant cradle, like the whole Atlantic is swaying you toward your future. The walls are thin. You can hear everything, coughing from the cabin next door. A baby is crying somewhere down the corridor, footsteps on the deck above, the ever-present engine vibration that makes your bones hum. Back home, you shared a cottage with your entire family. Privacy wasn't a thing you expected or really understood. But this is different. Here, you're surrounded by strangers. People you'll never see again after New York. People who are all going through the exact same thing you are. This strange mix of terror and excitement. This leap into the unknown. A whistle blows somewhere above, long and loud. The ship shudders slightly. We're moving, Margaret says quietly, and you are. You can feel it now. The slow turn of the great vessel. The awakening of her engines to full power. Through the porthole you watch the Irish coast begin to slide past. Green hills, stone walls, the spire of a church in the distance, and Queenstown Cove, as you've always called it. The last bit of Ireland you'll ever see, maybe the last bit of the only world you've ever known. Someone in another cabin starts singing, a Charnoz, an old-style lament. The voice is high and clear and achingly beautiful. It floats through the thin walls and the narrow corridors and the whole vast humming machinery of the ship. And just like that, you're crying, not sobbing. Just silent tears running down your face as Ireland disappears behind you. Patrick's crying too. You can hear him trying to hide it in his bunk above the children. Margaret is holding her daughter close, face buried in the little girl's hair. Everyone is crying in this cabin, in the cabins around you. Probably in cabins all over the third-class sections. 700 people and their collective heartbreak, floating away from everything they've ever loved. But you're also smiling because tomorrow you'll wake up in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on the largest ship in the world, heading toward a future that could be anything, absolutely anything at all. The holy water bottle presses against your chest where you've tucked it into your shirt. Your mother's voice echoes in your memory, the last thing she said before you boarded the tender. Don't forget where you come from, but don't be afraid of where you're going. The singing continues. The ship moves on. The sun is setting somewhere beyond your porthole, painting the water gold and rose and purple. This is the beginning. This is third class on the Titanic. And for all its cramped spaces and thin walls and separation from your loved ones, for all the vibration and the noise and the strange food you'll eat, and the stranger faces you'll meet, this is also the most extraordinary thing that's ever happened to you. You have no idea what's coming. None of you do. But that's for later, much later. Right now you're 19 years old and you're sailing to America, and the whole world is opening up before you like a flower, finally seeing the sun. Right now, you're going to close your eyes and let the rocking of the ship carry you toward dreams of wide streets and tall buildings and your sister's face when she sees you at the station. Right now, you're going to sleep. The thin mattress beneath you isn't much softer than your bed at home. The blanket is wool, rough against your chin. There's no sheet, no pillowcase. You brought your own, like the steward suggested, though most of your fellow passengers simply make do without. But it's warm and it's clean, and when you wake up in the morning, you'll be hundreds of miles from Ireland and hundreds of miles closer to everything you've ever dreamed of. The singing has stopped. The children below are breathing slowly and deeply, already asleep. Margaret whispers a prayer in the darkness. Patrick's rosary beads click softly, a sound like rain on a window, and the Titanic sails on, carrying you and 700 other dreamers across the dark Atlantic toward the morning that's waiting just beyond the horizon. You wake up to the sound of someone being sick. Not in your cabin, thank God, but close. Very close through the thin timber wall to your left. Close enough that you can hear every heave and splash and groan. The poor soul sounds like they're dying in their seasickness. You'll learn the word properly soon enough, though you've heard of it before. Some people just can't handle the motion of a ship. Their bodies rebel against the constant rocking, the endless rise and fall that never quite stops no matter how massive the vessel. You're lucky. Your stomach is fine. A bit hungry maybe, but nothing churning or threatening to make an appearance. Patrick, on the other hand, looks green. He's gripping the edge of his bunk like he's afraid he'll fall off if he lets go. Are you all right? He shakes his head slowly, very slowly. Moving too fast seems to make it worse. I'll be grand, he manages. Just need to find my sea legs. That's what they call it. Finding your sea legs. The process of adjusting to life on a moving surface. Training your body to compensate for the pitch and roll without thinking about it. Some people find them in a few hours, others take days, and some poor unfortunates never find them at all and spend the entire crossing hunched over buckets. Below you, the children are already awake. Little William is telling his sister Mary about a dream he had, something about horses made of clouds. Mary isn't impressed. She wants breakfast. Margaret is up and dressed, looking tired but determined. Women on this ship, especially mothers, don't have the luxury of lying in bed feeling sorry for themselves. There are children to feed and clothes to sort and a whole day of keeping little ones entertained in a small space to look forward to. Morning, she says when she sees you stirring. Sleep well. You did actually, better than you expected. The constant engine vibration that seemed so strange last night has become almost soothing now, like a heartbeat, like the ship is alive beneath you, carrying you along. Not bad, you tell her. Bit noisy though, she laughs. It's not really funny, but she laughs anyway, because what else can you do? The noise is something else. Even now, in what passes for morning quiet, you can hear everything. The family in the cabin next door are arguing about something. A baby is crying somewhere down the corridor. Footsteps on the deck above. Crew members going about their business. the endless mechanical rhythm of the engines, and, of course, the person is still being sick through the wall. The cabin walls are made of thin timber panels. You realise now that you're looking at them in daylight, or what passes for daylight down here on E-Deck. The single electric bulb gives everything a yellowish cast that makes it hard to tell what time it actually is. The walls don't go all the way to the ceiling. There's a gap at the top, maybe a foot or so, that opens right out into the corridor. The idea, you suppose, is ventilation and air circulation. Down here in the bowels of the ship, you'd suffocate without some way for fresh air to move around. But it also means privacy is basically a joke. Every cough, every sneeze, every whispered conversation floats out through that gap and mingles with all the other coughs and sneezes and whispered conversations from all the other cabins. It's like living in one big room that's been divided up by curtains that don't quite close. Back home you lived in a 2-room cottage with your parents and 3 siblings. Privacy wasn't exactly abundant there either, but at least the walls were stone. At least sounds didn't travel quite so freely. Here you might as well be sleeping in the same room as 100 strangers. Padre makes it out of bed, moving carefully like someone walking on ice. He needs to use the toilet, he mumbles. Where is the toilet? That's a good question. There isn't one in the cabin, obviously. Third class doesn't get private bathrooms. What third class gets are communal water closets scattered along the corridors shared by everyone in this section of the ship. And for bathing, 2 bathtubs, that's it. 2 bathtubs for all 700-odd third-class passengers, 1 for the men, 1 for the women. You want a bath? You sign up with a steward and take your turn. Maybe once during the whole crossing if you're lucky. But here's the thing, most people don't really care. Not because they're dirty or don't value cleanliness, but because in 1912, the idea of bathing every day is actually kind of strange. Once a week is normal for working people. Once a month isn't unusual. There are even people who believe bathing too often is bad for you, that it opens up your pores to disease and washes away the natural oils that protect your skin. So, 2 bathtubs for 700 people. That's fine. That's plenty. More than most of these passengers would have had access to at home. The water closets, though, those you'll need to visit regularly. Padre staggers off in search of one, following the signs posted in the corridor. They're in English, which is fine for you, but you've already noticed that plenty of your fellow passengers don't speak English. Swedes, Finns, Italians, Syrians, Chinese, and people from places you've barely heard of, all crammed together in this floating maze, all trying to figure out how to navigate a ship that's bigger than most villages. While Padre is gone, you decide to wash up. The ceramic basin in the corner of your cabin is big and solid, white with a bluish tinge. Above it sits a water tank that you can fill from one of the taps in the corridor. It's not running water in the modern sense. You have to actively go fetch water and pour it in, but it works. You splash some water on your face. It's cold, of course. No hot water for third class. Not without a lot of effort anyway. The cold wakes you up though, clears away the last fog of sleep. In the small mirror above the basin, you study your face. You look the same as you did yesterday, the same as you did a week ago, a month ago. But something's different. You can see it in your own eyes. You're not the same person who left Cork. You're already changing, already becoming whoever you're going to be on the other side of this ocean. Your cabin mate Margaret has taken the children to find breakfast. She invited you to come along, but you want to wait for Padre. He's your cousin. You're in this together. You should stick together, at least for the important things like meals. While you wait, You take a closer look at your surroundings. The cabin really is clean, spotlessly clean. It looks almost clinical, like a hospital room or a doctor's office. White painted walls, that red linoleum floor, everything designed to be easy to wipe down and disinfect. No fabric hangings where dust could collect, no carpets where dirt could hide. There's a reason for this, disease. The shipping companies are terrified of disease. One outbreak of measles or typhoid or, God forbid, cholera, and the whole ship becomes a floating coffin. Sickness can rip through a crowded vessel in days, killing dozens, turning a profitable voyage into a disaster. That's why they inspected you so carefully before boarding, checking your scalp for lice, your eyes for signs of infection, and asking about your family's medical history. America doesn't want sick immigrants. The shipping company doesn't want dead passengers, so everything is designed to minimize the risk. Clean surfaces, separated classes, and an actual hospital ward on board somewhere toward the stern, staffed by the ship's doctors and matrons who can isolate anyone showing symptoms before it spreads. Most vaccinations haven't been invented yet. You realize the great medical breakthroughs are still decades away. If something bad starts spreading, all they can do is quarantine the sick and hope for the best. It's a sobering thought. You're trapped on this ship for 6 days with hundreds of strangers, any one of whom might be carrying something deadly without even knowing it. But then again, the same was true in your village. The same was true anywhere humans gathered together in groups. At least here, they're trying to prevent it. At least here, everything is clean. Padre returns looking slightly less green. The walk to the water closet and back seems to have helped, or maybe the worst of the seasickness has passed. Either way, he's ready for breakfast. The two of you make your way through the corridor, following the flow of other passengers heading in the same direction. Scotland Road, they call this main passageway. It runs almost the entire length of the ship on E-deck, connecting the forward sections where the single men sleep to the aft sections where families and single women are housed. It's busy this morning. Packed actually, because everyone's going to the same place, the dining saloon on F-deck where breakfast is being served between 8 and 10. You pass doors to other cabins, some open, some closed. Through the open ones, you catch glimpses of people getting ready for their day. A young woman brushing her hair in front of a mirror, an older man reading from a prayer book, children bouncing on bunks while their mother tells them to stop. They'll break something, and you hear things, so many things. Conversations in languages you don't recognise. Babies fussing, someone playing harmonica badly. The constant undercurrent of the engines is so present now that you almost don't notice it anymore. The people around you are not what you expected. You knew there would be immigrants. Of course, that's what third class is for. Mainly, people are leaving Europe for America, chasing the dream of a better life. But somewhere in your head, you'd pictured a homogeneous mass. Poor people, desperate people, people without options. The reality is more complicated. Yes, there are people here who clearly have nothing. You can see it in their clothes, patched and repatched, in their faces, thin and worn, and in the way they clutch their bundles like someone might try to steal them at any moment. But there are also people who look almost respectable. Men in pressed suits with starched collars, women in nice dresses with proper hats, families who clearly aren't rich but aren't quite poor either, people who had enough to book passage, who could have afforded second class if they'd wanted but chose to save the money instead. Tradespeople. You realise cobblers and carpenters and bakers and tailors. Professionals who know their craft and can do it well. They're not fleeing poverty so much as chasing opportunity. There's work in America, good work, better pay than the old country offers. So they've packed up their skills and their families and booked passage on the finest ship in the world. Because that's what the Titanic is, even in third class. The finest ship in the world. The White Star Line made sure of that. Third class accommodations here are better than second class on most other vessels. Private cabins instead of open dormitories. Meals are included instead of bringing your own food. Electric lights. Running water in the corridors. Actual toilets instead of buckets. For many passengers, this is the most comfortable journey they've ever taken. More comfortable than their homes back in Europe. More comfortable than anything they're likely to have in America for the first few years. These 6 days at sea might actually be a vacation. The only vacation some of them will ever have. That thought sits strangely in your chest. A vacation. You'd never considered it that way, but look around. Nobody has to work. 3 meals a day are provided. There are common rooms for socializing, open decks for fresh air, and absolutely nothing required of you except to show up when the bugle sounds and be patient while the ship carries you across the water. 6 days of rest before the hard work of building a new life begins. You could do worse. The stairwell down to F-deck is crowded. People moving in both directions, some coming up from breakfast, others heading down. You stick close to Patrick, not wanting to lose him in the shuffle. Getting separated in this maze could mean missing your meal entirely, and your stomach is making increasingly insistent demands. Near the bottom of the stairs, you almost collide with a man coming up. "Watch yourself there," he says, and then his face changes. Patrick. Brennan. Your cousin's eyes go wide. Seamus O'Brien. The 2 men grab each other's arms, grinning like idiots. You've never seen this Seamus in your life, but apparently Patrick knows him from somewhere. Childhood. It turns out they grew up in neighbouring townlands before Seamus's family moved to Gway. "I didn't know you were on this ship," Patrick says. "Same. When did you board?" "Queenstown. Yesterday." "Ah, we came on at Southampton. Been aboard 2 days now." Seamus notices you standing there awkwardly. "Who's this?" "My cousin Cyan. He's coming with me to Boston." You shake hands. Seamus has a strong grip and an open face. The kind of person you instinctively trust, though you've known him for all of 30 seconds. "Boston, is it? We're headed to New York ourselves. My sister's there already. Sent us money for the crossing." He gestures vaguely upward. "I'm bunked forward with other men. The cabin's got 8 of us in there. All strangers except me, brother. But it's not bad. Clean. Food's good. 8 in one cabin." Seamus shrugs. "Better than a dormitory. Better than the ship we looked at before this one. That one had all steerage in one big room. Sleeping on shelves like cargo. This is luxury. I'm telling you, he's right. You know, you've heard stories about the old immigrant ships. The coffin ships. They called some of them that during the famine years. People packed in so tight they could barely move. Disease is spreading like wildfire. Bodies thrown overboard when they died mid-crossing. Compared to that, Titanic's third class is a palace. Seamus has to go to a meeting with someone on deck, but he promises to find you later. Catch up properly. Share a drink if they can find one. Patrick waves as he disappears up the stairs, then turns to you with the first real smile you've seen since boarding. Can you believe it? Seamus O'Brien. I haven't seen him in 10 years. Small world, you think? Or maybe it's a big world that's getting smaller. All these people from all these places, all funneling onto ships, all heading to the same promised land. You're bound to run into familiar faces eventually. The dining saloon is straight ahead now. You can smell it before you see it. Food smells, breakfast smells. Your stomach growls loud enough that Padrick hears it and laughs. Come on then, let's eat. You follow him through the doors and into the noise and bustle of 700 people trying to start their day. The journey continues. The ocean stretches endlessly in all directions, invisible from down here but present in every rock and sway of the deck beneath your feet. Somewhere far ahead, still impossibly distant, America is waiting. Your sister is waiting. Your whole future is waiting. But right now, breakfast is waiting, and that's enough. The bugle that called you down here is still echoing in your memory. A bright, brassy sound that cut through all the noise of the corridors. You'll hear it 3 times a day for the next 5 days. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The rhythm of shipboard life was measured in meals and the spaces between them. You find an empty seat at one of the long tables. A stranger sits across from you, an older man with a weathered face and kind eyes. He nods in greeting but doesn't speak. Finnish, you'll learn later. Doesn't have much English, but he smiles, and you smile back because that's what you do on a ship like this. Surrounded by people you don't know, sharing tables and corridors and thin walls and everything else. You smile, you nod, and you make space for each other. You're all in the same boat, literally. All 700 of you crammed into the lower decks of the largest ship ever built, all hoping for something better on the other side. The first morning of your new life is just beginning. The dining saloon is bigger than your church back home. That's the first thing that hits you when you walk through the doors. The sheer size of the space. You've never been in a room this large that wasn't a cathedral or a marketplace, and this one is underground. Well, underwater, below the waterline of a ship buried in the steel belly of this impossible floating city. Long wooden tables stretch from one end to the other, each one big enough to seat 20 people or more. The chairs are freestanding, not bolted down, which surprises you until you realise why. People need to be able to move around, to slide in and out, and to make room for the constant flow of passengers coming and going, because there's a lot of coming and going. 700 third-class passengers and a room that holds maybe 400. They do it in sittings. First sitting, second sitting. You're in the first one apparently, which means you get the fresh bread and hot porridge before the crowd picks everything over. The room is split in 2 by a watertight bulkhead running through the middle. One of those doors that can seal shut if the ship starts flooding. Strange to think about eating your breakfast next to a reminder that things can go wrong at sea. But you don't think about it for long. The food smells too good. At the far end of the room, near the wall, you notice something funny. A single table smaller than the others set facing the bulkhead. Table 17, someone calls it. Just 2 seats, both of them staring directly at the steel wall instead of out into the room. That's the antisocial table, Nora will tell you later, laughing. For the ones who can't stand company, can you imagine crossing the Atlantic with your nose 2 feet from a wall? Someone must want it, though. Someone must prefer silence to conversation. You can almost understand that. Almost. There are moments on this ship when the noise of 700 people feels like it might crush you. When you'd give anything for a quiet corner where nobody expects you to talk, but not at breakfast. At breakfast, you want to be surrounded by life. The walls are bare steel painted white. You can see the rivets. You can see the beams that hold everything together. It's not decorated like you imagine first class must be. with wood panelling and fancy light fixtures, but it's not ugly either. There's something honest about it, something that says this is a ship. We're not pretending it's anything else, but we've made it as nice as we can for you. And they have. There are posters on the walls advertising other ships, White Star Line vessels mostly, like the Olympic, which is the Titanic's sister ship, nearly identical in design, but also Holland America and Atlantic Transport Line, which confuses you until someone explains that they're all owned by the same company. Some American billionaire named Morgan bought them all up, trying to control the North Atlantic shipping trade. It didn't work out the way he planned, but that's a story for another time. Right now, the only story that matters is the story of what you're about to eat. You find seats at one of the long tables, you and Padraig. The Finnish man from before ends up across from you again, plus a young Swedish couple who keep stealing glances at each other like newlyweds, plus an older woman travelling alone who turns out to be from Gway, heading to meet her son in Philadelphia. The Gway woman's name is Nora. She's probably 50, though it's hard to tell. Life ages people differently depending on how hard it's been. Her face has lines that speak of worry and work, but her eyes are bright and her smile is quick. "First crossing?" she asks, and you nod. "Third for me," she says. Back and forth, back and forth. "My Patrick went over 10 years ago, established himself, brought over his wife. Now it's my turn to see the grandchildren before I get too old to make the trip. Third crossing." You can't imagine doing this 3 times. Once feels like plenty. Once feels like a miracle. But people do it all the time. You realise this isn't the edge of the world. It's just a big puddle with really good boats now. People cross it like they cross the Irish Sea. Not casually exactly, but not as if it's the end of everything either. The steward arrives with breakfast. He's wearing a white jacket with a numbered badge on his arm. Very official, very proper, and he's carrying a tray loaded with more food than you've seen in one place since Christmas dinner 2 years ago. Porridge first. Big steaming bowls of oatmeal with milk on the side. You haven't had oatmeal this thick and creamy since you were a child, and your grandmother made it special on feast days. The stuff you eat at home is thin and watery, stretched to feed as many mouths as possible. This is the real thing. This is luxury. Then come the eggs, scrambled, piled on a plate like little yellow clouds. Back home, eggs are for selling. You keep chickens, sure, but those eggs go to market to buy flour and salt and other things you can't grow yourself. Eating eggs for breakfast is something rich people do, or apparently something third-class passengers on the Titanic do. Smoked herrings appear. You've never had them before. Padre eyes them suspiciously. The Finnish man across from you lights up like someone just handed him gold. He says something in his language, clearly delighted, and starts eating with genuine pleasure. Bread and butter. Fresh bread. Not the hard stuff you packed for the journey. Soft and warm and slathered with actual butter. Not the margarine substitute you're used to. And marmalade. Orange marmalade in little pots which you've seen in shop windows but never actually tasted. You spread some on your bread. Take a bite. Close your eyes. Sweet and bitter at the same time. Tangy, bright. Nothing like anything you've ever eaten before. Good, isn't it? Nora laughs at your expression. Wait until you try the plum pudding at dinner. That'll really knock your socks off. There's tea, of course, strong and hot. And coffee for those who prefer it. You've had coffee a few times before at the hotel in Cove where your father sometimes picked up work. It tastes like burned earth, in your opinion. but plenty of people seem to love it.